This meeting is being recorded.
I know.
So anyways, due to technical difficulties, Matt and I were going to split this episode into 2 parts. So obviously you all if you're here, you just got done watching part 1. And now for part 2, where we talk about a Super Bowl matchup that I think we all predicted to see in the Rams versus the Bengals.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think we all picked the Bengals going in anyway, right? I mean, the Rams, it's not that shocking, I guess. It's just we kind of left them for dead, and then they came back. So good for the Rams. Good for the Rams.
But no, anyways, yes, Super Bowl 56 is a matchup between the Los Angeles Rams and the Cincinnati Bengals. The Cincinnati Bengals are on a very improbable run to the Super Bowl behind, a quarterback that I like to call Joe Shiesty or Joe Burr himself. And Matt, kind of talk about what you've seen from the Bengals and what's really stood out about this improbable run. Other than my calling him Joe Shiesty every 2 seconds.
Burr. It's not the Shiesty, it's the Burr.
Burr.
It sounds like a noise Bean would make. Like, Bean, what do you think of the Super Bowl? Burr.
Burr.
Okay. Now that I'm going to attempt to regain my composure. It's a weird thing to talk about because, the Bengals in the playoffs, especially the first couple of games, the Raiders and Titans games, it didn't feel like they did anything exceptionally. I mean, Joe Burrow got sacked how many times in those 2 games? Probably combined 14, 15. And they were just pulling out. And I mean, of course, that first win was kind of marred with the controversy of the phantom whistle on the game, on the passing of the giving the Bengals the win, more or less. And then in the next game, Ryan Tannehill decided to play like Carson Wentz, and the next thing it's over for the Titans. So, the first couple games, it was kind of like, wow, the Bengals won, but they're going to get stood up in the championship game because it's been kind of fluky. And then the championship game, you think it's going to happen because they're down 21-3. The Chiefs are at the goal line. It looks like it's over. 28-3 with the Kansas City at home. That's not going to be an Atlanta Falcons thing. That's going to be you're losing 42-10, 42-17. And then they get the benefit of one of the strangest play calls at the goal line I've ever seen. And they seize that momentum going into halftime. It's only 21-3. And then they start to get to Patrick Mahomes a little bit, and they're starting to inch back into it. They may have Jamar Chase kind of covered, but there are other guys cutting up the slack, TJ Uzama's out, but you've still got Tyler Boyd, you've still got T. Higgins, and you've still got Joe Mixon. And then you start watching him more and more, and you're thinking, this is actually happening. And then, of course, overtime, the Chiefs win the toss, and you're like, well, now it's not happening. And then Von Bell comes up with that ball deflected off of the Jesse Bates, and you're like, okay, maybe it is happening. So I think we all said what we mean when we say that this run has just been improbable. Anytime the Bengals got down, they were down, and it looked like they were out. They were officially going to be out. And instead, they're just so resilient, or Joe Burrow is so resilient on offense, and the defense has adapted a bend but not break kind of mentality to generate some turnovers at key moments. It's a lot like, unless you're going to kill me for this, it's a lot like what the Colts should have been when they had Andrew Luck. A young quarterback who's running for his life, who can make things happen with his legs, and a defense that's supposed to, at the right time, come away with a nice turnover or 2. And that's how the Bengals are doing it. Joe Burrow, he's on his butt a lot. He's getting sacked a lot. But when he's not, he's throwing the ball wisely. He's got a great young receiver, which is something that a lot of quarterbacks wish they had. He's got T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd as backups, and he's got a really good running back core. And that defense is just coming up big at the right moment. They may not be like the most dominating, fearful, consistent defense, but when you give them an opportunity, they will seize it. They will take advantage of a bad pass. They will take advantage of an overthrow, and they will turn that into something positive for their offense. And that's what you need to do in the NFL. And, of course, the other thing we're not talking about, or I don't think we're talking about enough, is the fact that they have a rookie kicker who's 10 for 10 right now in some of the most high-pressure kicks of his entire life. who looks like he's going to become the next Adam Vinatieri out of nowhere the way he's playing right now. So it is improbable to see the Bengals here because they didn't do anything exceptionally, but what they do they do very well. And they have an exceptional quarterback and an exceptional receiver who are going to who have led them this far. And who knows what that's going to look like in the Super Bowl? Who cares really? Because this is one of the great underdog stories of our lifetime. Because the Bengals, they were down there with the Texans, Jaguars, Giants odds to win the Super Bowl, and we all know how they ended up. But there's only one team that's 13-6 right now and looking finally to win their first Super Bowl. And that's the Bengals. And I think there's something to be said there a lot for the personnel on that roster. But it'll just be interesting to see how that translates a week from now and see how they come out and play.
I want to start by saying Money Mac can spin the top off of a Gatorade bottle by kicking a football into the top row. I don't expect him to be missing too many field goals, to be completely honest. But some of my takeaways from this improbable run. The Raiders, I felt like they had a pretty good shot to win to begin with. And the Titans, I knew they were going to be flustered because their MVP had been out for a while. I thought they were going to try and force him back, and then that was going to disrupt the offense. And I knew with how Burrow was playing, Joe Burrow and the Bengals were playing, they were going to make the right plays at the right time, and they were coming away. So that wasn't a surprise for me to get to the AFC Championship necessarily, just given who they matched up against. Now, the surprising part is when they beat the Kansas City Chiefs. And, of course, it never looked improbable. It never looked so improbable until the end of the first half when they were down 21-3. Because, in the first half, Mahomes is looking like vintage Mahomes. He's spinning out of sacks, throwing to Kelsey and Tyreek in the back of the end zone, just making everything look completely too easy. And after how that Bills game ended, you're thinking, oh, here we go again. Mahomes is about to go God mode, and he's going to take the Chiefs to another Super Bowl. Then the second half happens. And I don't want to accuse anyone of anything, but it almost looked like Patrick Mahomes was lackadaisical at times. Like he was almost too relaxed when you got to keep your foot on the gas or your foot on the throat or whatever phrase you want to use. It looked like he made careless throws and that he thought that the game is already locked up so that he didn't keep the pedal to the metal. Whereas Burrow knew his back was against the wall and he kept making the play after play after play after play. And of course, if the game gets to overtime, I think Mahomes makes very two lackadaisical throws. And then on the third down, I think he made a very good throw to Tyreek Hill. And it, something you rarely see happen. Ball goes off his hands and then Jesse Bates, and then they come up with the interception. But this is what they get for thinking that they had the game already won. Burrow, and what was stood out is to end up, make this comeback. I watched Joe Burrow or Joe Shiesty, Joe Burr, just get out of sacks left and right where, I'm thinking that Frank Clark and Chris Jones got him wrapped up. He just ducks the shoulder, gets out, rolls to the right or the left, just depending on the play, and hits a wide open guy downfield. And just I don't know what's the word I'm looking for. His, I guess, the ability to keep the play alive.
Extend the play.
His ability to extend the play or to make the right play was just off the charts. And I got to say this though. It was amazing to watch. And the fact that we're talking about a guy that has won a Heisman Trophy, won a college national championship, and now has a chance to win a Super Bowl all within a 3-year span is just a staple just to how good of a career Joe Burrow already has. And what's amazing is though, and we've mentioned this before on the podcast, is this is a guy that was not originally the go-to starter in college. We all remember he started his career at Ohio State, but of course, he sat behind JT Barrett. He lost the starting quarterback job to Dwayne Haskins, who is now backing up the Steelers. Back up for the Steelers, I might add. Actually, no, a third stringer for the Steelers, I might add. And then, of course, goes to LSU, hooks up with Joe Brady, and the rest is history. But what's the biggest
football team of all time?
Right, it has the greatest. Yeah, well, I don't know about the best college football team of all time, but he had the best season of all time, without question. I still think those 2001 Miami Hurricanes are the best team of all time. But What's amazing though, I guess my other takeaway from that is after that game and the Bengals punched their ticket to the Super Bowl, I've heard a lot of things, and I got to get this one off my chest. I'm hearing a lot of how much we overvalue how much an offensive line means. And I cannot stress enough how wrong that is. Because here's for number one, due to a lack of an offensive line, the Bengals Cinderella story is over next Sunday. I'll start by saying that. And number two, yes, this is a great run they're on right now. But if they don't get a line, this is the last run they're going on. If they get a line, they can do this for the next 10 years. We know Burrow can deliver. We know Chase can deliver. But if they get an offensive line, they can do this the next 10 years.
They could.
And then we've seen this again as Colts fans. We cannot stress this enough. We have seen this before. We had a special quarterback in Andrew Luck that we never would have thought in a million years he was going to retire early. But, of course, he kept taking beating after beating after beating. And then finally just decided to call it quits. Yeah. Who's to say the same thing won't happen to Joe Burrow if they don't get him a line? So, yes.
Who's already torn his MC and ACLs.
Exactly. He's already at a head start where Andrew Luck wasn't. So, yes, the difference of the offensive line is going to be the difference in the Super Bowl next week, and B, how many of these runs the Bengals can go on going forward.
Yeah, that's totally true because we want to act like Joe Burrow is doing this in spite of the offensive line, but we're not thinking about what would happen if he had an offensive line. Now, the big debate between the Penei Sewell pick and the Jamar Chase pick, I think that's gonna eventually settle itself out. I think we can't deny that Jamar Chase is probably going to be a generational type player. He and Justin Jefferson are going to be really battling for like 1 and 2 for many years to come. And that's a great thing for the Bengals to have. But it's not sustainable. It's not going to be sustainable. It really will be like that meme of him throwing to literally anyone or throwing to Jamar Chase and not throwing it at all. It's not a sustainable model, but it's good enough for a nice Cinderella run this year. And I think the Bengals are going to address this with pick 31 or 32, depending on what happens next Sunday. And I really do think now that they've looked that good, that people are going to want to. It sounds weird to say that Cincinnati might end up a free agent destination for like guys they actually need or want. So I don't know if they'll even have to do it through the draft. They may get some guys who are stuck on mid-tier ball clubs who just want to go play with a fun team that's fun to win. And, I mean, this also brings to mind, just think about Joe Burrow with an offensive line. What's he going to do if he gets one? How scary is that going to be, him throwing to Jamar Chase with 5 seconds to throw? That's not good for the league. That's not good for the league. That's going to put everyone on notice. But I do think you hit the nail on the head here, Les, when you said something about how this will affect the game next Sunday. Because I don't know if you saw, like, the very end of the NFC Championship, but you could see what Aaron Donald wants more than anything. What he kept pointing to was this finger right here. That's the one thing he doesn't have right now. He's got all the Defensive Player of the Year awards you can imagine. He's going to join the 100-sack club very soon. He's almost a double-digit time Pro Bowler. The one thing he doesn't have is that ring. And if you don't think that he wants it, especially after the last time he was there, that dud against New England, how awful that game was, how they got beaten that game. If you don't think he remembers that and wants to rectify it on the biggest stage, then I got a farm in Alaska I'd like to sell you because I think he's going to come out there more motivated than we've ever seen him.
I mean, that's saying a lot because Aaron Donald himself is hard enough to stop. But what's even scarier, especially when you're a team like the Bengals that doesn't have a great offensive line, that is going to have to keep your head on a swivel to keep your franchise quarterback upright, is that another option that they have to rush the passer already has a Super Bowl MVP in Von Miller. Even though he's past his prime, he's still a threat to rush the passer. So, and I look at this Rams team, and we talked about it earlier in the podcast and how much money they've been able to spend when they brought in the likes of Von Miller, when they brought in Odell Beckham, and you worded it perfectly that you make these type of moves to win a Super Bowl. You don't spend this kind of money with the intention with anything less than to win a Super Bowl. And I look at just the team that they have. And as if there isn't another like quarterback story enough with Joe Burrow, there's another one in LA with Matt Stafford. You have a guy that's been, I guess, synonymous with losing, not necessarily because of any fault of his, but because of the team that he was drafted by and what they failed to give him in his career. But now he is the ultimate definition of you give a good player a good supporting cast and look what can happen. That is Matt Stafford to a T right now. And I knew that, and we all kind of knew this that it was going to have this kind of effect with, and kids cover your ears real quick because I'm going to quote Sean McVay real quick. But when Sean McVay was talking about what Matt Stafford looked like in preseason, he just said, "Yo, he's a bad motherfucker." I think we all knew that this was going to be a year where Matt Stafford stood out.
This meeting is being recorded.
Yeah, and I think even beyond Matthew Stafford especially, you've got a lot of redemption arcs going on with this LA roster. I mean, Odell Beckham out of nowhere. He was washed up, done. His dad was calling out Baker Mayfield. We all thought he was well on his way to be the next Antonio Brown, and he might be because he's heading to get a Super Bowl ring at this rate. And he's become the best receiver on that team. Or Jalen Ramsey, who we all kind of forget. I know it's hard to forget a guy like Jalen Ramsey, but we kind of forget he's the number one corner going up against Jamar Chase. This is a guy who came from Jacksonville, led them to one of their great seasons in the history of the franchise, and then got dumped basically because Jacksonville is Jacksonville. Let's not forget that. Mm-hmm. He's going for his first ring too, and he looks like he really wants it. It's just amazing, Les, because we act like the Rams, and they are, for lack of a better term, a super team. But they've gone through a lot of crap to get here. A lot of their guys were reclamation projects who, they can't win in other places. They got traded because their franchise was cheap. Their parents are affecting decisions on the team. And let's not forget that these guys had injuries. We're not even talking about how Robert Woods hasn't played at all this year. Can you imagine if this team had Robert Woods? It would be incredible. Can you imagine if they had Darrell Henderson healthy or Cam Akers fully healthy? They had to sign 30-whatever-year-old Eric Weddle, who had retired, to make this playoff run, and he led the team in tackles on last Sunday against the 49ers. It is a super team, but it doesn't feel like a super team. It feels like, I don't know, it's like a little league movie. The Rams are like a little league sports movie where, like, you get the group together, you get the ringer, you get the kid who's kind of like quietly good that nobody's thinking about. You get the guy who can, who's the big brute who can go out and make a tackle or two. It's a lot like, again, the gang back together type movie. They're going on one last heist. And that's something I think the Rams are motivated by, because whether we want to admit it or not, a lot of the guys who are leading that team are getting older. Andrew Whitworth's an older guy. Matthew Stafford's an older guy. This may be their best chance to get back there, because if there's anything we've learned in like the not really post-Patriots, but in like the post-Patriot dynasty era, it's that other teams that we think are going to win a Super Bowl never do. The Seahawks never won another one. The Broncos, they won one and got blown out in the other. The Chiefs really haven't spawned into the dynasty we thought they could be. The Packers with Aaron Rodgers didn't become the dynasty we thought they could be. You may only get one shot at this, especially with a team like the Rams, where you're going to be in cap hell relatively quickly. We saw what happened. New Orleans never even made it this far with the risk they took to try to get here. And they're in cap hell now. So, I think the Rams know that this may be the only shot they get, and they're going to make the most of it. Because if there's anything we've learned, it's that unless you've got Bill Belichick and it's the mid-2000s, your dynasty is not guaranteed. You can act like it all you want, but you may only have one good best shot. Even Tampa Bay, for as good as we thought they were going to be coming into the year, their run is over. Without Tom Brady and Gronkowski, they'll still be good, but they ain't going to be feared. So, and that's another reason why I think the Rams know. Well, as the Bengals, with a few adjustments, have a very bright future ahead of them. The Rams, this is now. This is not the future. This is all systems go right now, because you're here, and it may be the only chance you get to prove it.
You took the words right out of my mouth because they're going to be in, because if they don't win it, I mean, they have nothing to show for it. And then they're just, like you said, they're just going to be in, salary cap hell, for lack of a better term, because when you go out and sign that much talent or that much cap room, this is to win a Super Bowl and have something to show for it. So that's why I think LA is going to win this Super Bowl this next week. It'd be one crazy run if the Bengals were able to pull it out, but I just don't see it happening. I see the Rams being too dominant on the defensive line to really give Burrow enough time to really make something happen. But I'd like to be wrong. Not really, but I could really care less. I'm really just looking forward to a good game, to be completely honest. But
it should be good.
Yeah. With that being said, do you want to make any score prediction before next Sunday?
I'll say I'm gonna take Los Angeles. I'm gonna take LA by a final score of 41-35.
Oh, you got a high scoring game. I think mine's not quite as high scoring as that. I have LA 34, Cincinnati 20. That's what I got.
I could see that happening too. I just think there's going to be a lot. It's going to be more exciting than last year. I do think that. I hope it is, because last year's game was kind of anticlimactic for what we were expecting with Tampa Bay and Kansas City. But I think this year we'll rectify some of that. Now, I'm trying to think. For me, the way the Bengals win this game is if Matt Stafford reverts back to week 10 through like 15 Matt Stafford and gives them a couple of gimmies.
Mm-hmm.
And like we said, the Bengals' strength has been taking advantage of those gimme type turnover plays. And if they can get those and generate a couple, get the Rams defense a little bit gassed and give not even Jamar Chase. Don't worry about Jamar Chase. He's got Jalen Ramsey. Look for T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd to get open way down the field. If they can turn Stafford over, and if they can get some nice shots down the field with the Rams' lesser secondary guys, I think the Bengals have a shot. The problem is, like you said, I don't think the Bengals will be able to get a lot of sustained drives going because of that LA defensive line. That's why I'm taking the Rams.
Yeah, I would have to agree. That can pretty much wraps up everything I have to say about this game, unless you have anything to add. I
do have one thing I'd like to say.
Okay.
The best part about the Bengals winning would be avenging Harambe.
I mean, how did I know that was going to happen? They
already said they're doing it for Harambe. I feel like if the Bengals win, it's going to set up an Avengers Endgame type scenario here, Les, where Joe Burrow enters into that weird transitional dimension and sees Harambe, and he's like, what is this? And Harambe's like, you can either reset the timeline back to 2016 and prevent all this stuff, or you can win and go on and have a dynasty. And Joe Burrow has to make the choice between avenging Harambe and like resetting the timeline to 2016 or losing his bright future. And it's going to be a poetic moment when Joe Burrow and Harambe look at each other and say, I love you 3000 and embrace. And that's how the Super Bowl is going to end, with us either being reset to 2016 in a world without COVID and political elections, or with a Bengals dynasty for the next 10 years. And there's no in between.
Wow. That is quite a take. That might be the best take we've heard all day.
Thank you. I worked very hard on it.
I like it. But anyways, I like it, but I want to hear what the fans have to say about it. So as always, like and subscribe to the Less is More Sports YouTube channel and tell us what you liked, what you didn't like. I'm sure you loved Matt's final hot take of this episode, but as always, until next time, Matt and I are out.
We got to avenge him less.